Hey friends, look at this. This is the Retroid Pocket Flip 2. It's the latest emulator Android-y phone console thing. And although there's roughly 1.8 billion of these kind of things, I believe this one is the best. Apart from this, that top design is horrific. Why did they think that was going to be a good idea? It looks like a clock that's outlining 9 to 12, as if it's telling me that's the only time I have to play games as a 30-year-old, which is pretty accurate, but I don't want to be reminded of that, Retroid. And in a nutshell, you can use this thing to play classic games via emulation, Android games, you can use it for remote play and stuff like that. And so this is the follow-up to the incredibly popular Retroid Pocket 5, which everyone absolutely loved. And this is essentially that same console, but shoved into the flippy form factor, which I think is just way better for this kind of thing. So to start off with the unboxing, it was fine, pretty basic, but I think that's what you kind of expect with like a $200 Chinese handheld thing. Doesn't come with any extras to speak of apart from a charging cable, but that's fine. So in the hand, it feels pretty good, like quite plasticky, but this isn't, you know, like a super premium kind of console. Kind of toyish, but like in a good way. Like I feel like you're not going to be super precious of something like this. You've got a USB and headphone slot and a handy little thing here for our SD card. Although getting the SD card out of here is a bit of a nightmare, not gonna lie. Like, get your fingernail inside there isn't the most fun. Retroid make it pretty easy to set up with this sort of like step-by-step setup thing. Although you can kind of tell that it's not perfect in its English, but that did kind of make me laugh. Welcome to Retroid Pocket Flip 2. You will like it. It comes in a couple different pretty cool colors, but I went for the only colour I think is acceptable, obviously the purple. Why would you buy anything else? And on that note, why are games companies so afraid of colour in their consoles these days? Like, does everything have to be black and white? What's wrong with purple, you coward? You also have two different options for a processor. You can go for some brand I've never heard of, Ardino something. Or you can go for a Snapdragon, and obviously I went for that because I have trust issues. Get a little bit more performance and a little bit more juice out of that. The hinge was a big worry for me. I didn't know how this was going to feel, but from a somewhat limited 2 weeks of testing, it feels really solid. It has like a similar kind of weight to it when compared to like Game Boy SP, but it feels more like sort of sturdy. Obviously this has been pretty well used, but only time will tell, I guess. All of the buttons feel really great. Again, just sort of like they should. They're not too loud, got a really nice good bit of feedback to them. They feel like ever so slightly hollow when you compare them to an analog Pocket. These feel a little bit more dampened, but again, this is like more of a premium kind of thing. Usually the same as the D-pad, that just feels great. The analog sticks was something I really worried about. I thought they were going to be a bit small and a bit kind of weird to use, but they feel great. Very similar to like a Switch controller. I think actually a little bit nicer than the Switch controller, if I'm being honest. And these are also Hall effect joysticks, so you're not going to get the same kind of issues of drift that you do with the Switch. And the joysticks have this like sort of matte blue LED within them, and it looks really cool here in person. The shoulder buttons are probably my least favorite bit of the feel. There's this ever so slight stickiness to them, but other than that they're okay. And then the R1 and L2 are super clicky, just like a sort of mouse click. The speakers are also really good. Really impressed with them, to be honest. Get really loud, louder than I was expecting. I'd compare them to like a really good phone speaker. And it may sound obvious, but it's just really nice that it sleeps when it's closed. See that? And it just closes with like a really satisfying, oh yeah. And moving on to what I think is possibly the best feature of this handheld is the screen. People made a lot of noise about the Retroid Pocket 5 screen, and this is the same one. And I was a little bit skeptical. I feel like I've got so used to my Steam Deck OLED now that I didn't think it was gonna come close. But let me tell you, I might even, it may be better, not only in brightness and color saturation, but also the Retroid Pocket Flip 2 has a higher resolution screen. So this is 1080p compared to 720 on here. And it's just absolutely mind-blowing. It's so good. The colors and the saturation and the blacks are all some of the best I've ever seen. I own an OLED TV. OLED Switch, OLED Steam Deck, and this holds up with all of them. I'd actually say that this is a significantly better screen than the one in the Switch OLED. And while I didn't think that resolution bump to 1080p would be that different compared to 720p on such a small display, things just really do look that bit crisper. So moving on to the performance of things, I tested Game Boy Advance, GameCube, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1, and everything ran really good. I noticed a couple little frame drops on some more demanding GameCube games, but really nothing major. I think I actually remember the same game lagging a little bit on GameCube back in the day, so maybe it's something to do with the game. It's also really handy that you can change the modes on here between standard performance and high performance. If you do whack it on high performance, the fans like really kick up and make a fair bit of noise, so I tend to leave it on the regular performance mode, and that has worked great for me so far. And on the topic of like heat and fans and thermals and stuff, it's been good. Like, it gets a little bit warm during more demanding games, maybe like a little bit warmer than a Switch maybe, but again, nothing crazy. And now if we're going to talk a little bit more about the sort of design and the sort of general portability of it, I think this is what makes this really, really special. If you compare it to like the regular Flip 5, not that I have one, similar to the Steam Deck, it has this like big screen in the middle and then controls off to the side, which is great. But there's something really special about this form factor. Again, very akin to like the Game Boy SP or the original Nintendo DS. It feels infinitely more portable, obviously. Look at that. It's like a quarter the size of a Steam Deck. So much more throw in a bagable. Do you know what I mean? Like, anytime I'm moving my Steam Deck around, I basically don't move this thing without it being in its case. I am terrified of the screen getting scratched or the buttons getting kind of mucked up, whereas this is kind of like, it's got its own case, it's built in. And I think I'm nostalgically biased because I spent my whole childhood playing one of these, but I just think it makes practical sense. And in terms of battery life, I was really impressed with that too. I got about four and a half hours on Final Fantasy X PlayStation 2 game, and then on sort of like more Game Boy Advance games like Golden Sun, I think I got like 9 or 10 hours, I believe. Next, I have to address the elephant in the room, which is the emulation experience. Now, I think it's fair to say I'm a little bit of a nerd. Here I am making a YouTube video about gaming tech emulators. But with that being said, for me, setting up emulators was an absolute nightmare. I hated every second. Now, this isn't any reflection on the console itself. I'm purely coming at this from a noob's point of view on emulation and setting this kind of stuff up. It was so horrible. It took me about 5 hours. I ran a marathon last year, and I genuinely am not sure if I'd rather run the marathon again or try and set up emulators again on this. And ironically, it actually took me more time to set up the emulators on this than it did for me to run a marathon. Maybe I'm just being an absolute idiot, but I had a rough time. I followed Retroid Game Corp's incredibly good, helpful guide on how to set this up. But even still, after 5 hours of downloading different emulators and fiddling with BIOS files and changing all of these really intricate settings, I can get some games to run, but some of them won't save. For some reason, some games list themselves in Emulation Station 2 or 3 times. Some games will boot fine out of their emulator, but will refuse to boot out of Emulation Station for some reason. Now, there's probably an easy fix for all of these issues, but for me, the last thing I want to do when I come home from work and between 9 and 12 is trawl through Reddit trying to find the answer to why won't my Golden Sun emulator file save? Nah, it's just not for me. But what's frustrating about it is that when you do get it to work, it's like a religious experience. Being able to play all your like childhood favorite games, flick between one to the other, have them all running seamlessly on this beautiful screen is so magical. And I've had such a good time revisiting all these old classic games and having them run and play just like I used to remember. And because of that, I'm willing to look past the pain that was setting this up. But it is close. I think just Star Fox Adventure just pushed it over the edge for me. And now in terms of price, this thing starts at $199, which isn't too bad. But the chances are you'll want to upgrade to the slightly better processor, which is $30 more, okay? But then you also have to pay for shipping, which for me in the UK is $15 from 4PX, but I've never heard of them and I have trust problems, so we'll have to go for $35 with DHL, but then we also have to pay customs on top of that, which is $61.52. Which means this thing in total actually cost me $325, which is okay, I think. I wouldn't want to pay any more than that, if I'm honest. So to kind of wrap things up, I really like this. I think in terms of the kind of emulation, Android-y kind of consoles that are floating around at the minute, if you like the flip design, this is probably the best one you can get. The controls and the feel of the thing are great, and the screen is absolutely incredible. Setting up emulators is a nightmare, in my opinion, but once you get past that, it is magical. Everything it sets out to do, it does really well. I just wish they didn't do this stupid design on top. All right, so that about wraps things up. Thanks so much for watching, really appreciate it. I'm sorry it's been so long since I last made a video. I got a bit sleepy, but I'm back now. So I'll see you in a video soon. Cheers, guys.